You've won a new car. I am Dr. Jim Porter, and I'm going to talk to you about something that bears on people's mental health. And it's going to sound to some people hoity toity or academic or whatever, philosophical, but not mental health related. But I'm going to talk about sort of existentialism, absurdism, and nihilism. And it is what you probably think it is, um, that they're trying to talk about um, what is the purpose of our lives. And nihilism would say, hey, listen, ultimately everything's going to come to nothing. The sun is going to explode and swallow the earth. And then eventually the universe will slow down and just freeze up. And that will be the end of all life that ever has existed, as far as some of the stories are told by physicists, because physicists don't say things that strongly. They say that's as far as we can see and surmise, and the data seems to show us. They know that there's a lot more going on than they've been able to investigate. But the point is, some of the science has taken us to wonder if there is a purpose, because for there to be a purpose, there would have to be a purpose giver. And that purpose giver would be somebody who had the right to give purpose to existence. And back in the day, and quite a bit today, we think of that as an almighty purpose giver, a big, non-human, non-natural, supernatural thing, being, or process that knows what's right and what's wrong and what everybody's on this planet to do. And it goes all over the place. But when it comes down to it, when you really look at life, a lot of people are feeling like there is no inherent purpose to anything. Things just happened. And if you believe in evolution and some other thoughts, people just happened out of the earth. Nature perhaps has always been there. There has never been a time when universes didn't exist, or there hasn't been a time before this universe exists. There's no reason to believe that somebody made this universe, but that just nature and universes have always existed, and that there's no need to hypothesize an intelligent being. And yet we are intelligent by definition only. We have created the concept of intelligence, things that can think like us. And we nowadays say, well, probably other mammals can do that and all that. And definitely apes, though a lot of people don't believe those things. So there's a lot of disagreement, and there's reason for that. The big part about why this can be a non-helpful piece of thought. One, because it might not be true. There might be a God up there that's making everything going to happen and everybody's going to go to heaven. If there's one that's going to send some people to hell, then that's scary as shit. And why would there be such a thing like that? Pardon my language. So let's just make up our own purpose. Why did I say that? Because that's actually what I think is happening. Any organism, anything that could be considered a life form, either doesn't have the capacity to concern themselves with purpose, but we do. We're very complex life forms in many ways, compared to, say, a protozoa, maybe. Although some biologists will just say they're so complex in the way they do this and that, whatever. But the point is, the complexity that makes things like us have reflexive perception, which is reflexive perception. I'm not sure if it's a real term. It's a term I made up to say that we are able to uh, have this environment around us, and you could pretend it's the matrix. It was created by our mind to deal with the universe. It helps us get through things. The sight, sound, and all that we process gives us this world that we can navigate so that we continue to eat and then have babies who continue to eat and have babies. And that evolution took us from the original proto-life to actual life forms, which is a designation humans created. And a category humans created life versus non-life forms. And we consider ourselves the most complex one. And we're so traditionally bad at understanding what an exaggeration that is. We are taxonomologically apes, but we think we are so much more sophisticated for them. And if you look at the data and the structure of our organs and brain, including that organ, we can definitely justify that we're more complex than any other animal, including our closest relatives on the planet at this time. But I'm saying that that's not even such a compliment, because what does this thing do? It creates a simulation of nature that our bodies can understand. And we are our bodies. That is what our body is. Our body is us, and we are our body. This is an atheistic, non-dualistic way of thinking. There is just what is. We can't perceive it, but we are amazingly what we might call intelligent. And one facet of intelligence is it makes up stuff. Then it looks around at stuff and says, what's going on here? Then it makes up an explanation, and then it looks again to see if further observation makes your explanation makes sense. And if that keeps happening, you trust it. And so you believe that the grass is really green and that the sun rises. It looks like it rises, even though you know it doesn't rise. You understand that trees suck in carbon dioxide and spit out oxygen for us. You understand a lot of stuff. But it comes from a creative process of saying, there's this experience I'm having. I wonder if this experience could mean blankety blank. Oh yeah, it does mean blankety blank, because that seems to work for me in my daily life. Cars look really hard and fast, and let me test it. Oh yeah, I tried to catch up with that car and it just blew right by me. And then the other one is, hey, when I walk toward a car that's standing still, it's very heavy and I can't walk through it. So therefore, I'm definitely not going to get in front of a moving car, and we start to realize when we see people, we hear and see that people have gotten killed, a car running over it. You get it. That's sort of like observation sampling. So it doesn't mean what we think is real is real. And then something that should have come first probably, but we always seem to do this first part last, I think, is that we develop a belief system, right? That's one of the first things we do. We develop a belief system. But part of this belief system is not just cars are hard and fast and deadly. It's, I have something I'm supposed to do on the planet. Where do you get that? You get that from people that raised you and people around you and televisions and priests and cops and friends and creative people in your own imagination. and you develop what you believe is an actual purpose of life, which is something like be good so that you won't suffer in the long run. And a very spiritualist and some religion kind of way is do certain things, be good, have the right intentions behind them also, and you will go to heaven. That's that there's so many religions that are trying to figure out what the heck we're here for, because our brain believes in purpose, but purpose is only a construct. So the more you work for a purpose, the more you're playing a really cool game. But I'm decided to go along with the people who say it's not. It doesn't just seem like a game. It is a game. It is like playing soccer. I think the Hindus call life the great game. And it's because we have these assumptions that seem so real. And when you're watching a movie, it really grabs you. That's how gullible we are. They feel real for us. When you watch a play right in front of you, it feels real to you after a while. A magician is a great example. That looks real, and how? They didn't use any, I don't know. They didn't use anything like, I can't, they're taking advantage of the way your brain works, but magic isn't real. That's why their shows are fun, you know? If, okay, so, if you don't have a purpose, what's the point of living? And the answer is actually very easy. I thought it would be harder when I first pushed play on this video or record. The answer is you do have a purpose, because I just told you your brain can't help but author a purpose for you. Out of all the inputs you had and all the way your neurology and the rest of your biology works, your brain is a purpose guessing machine. And that purpose guessing machine isn't completely random. We get punishment and reward inputs from the environment constantly. And we learn lessons, and we start to create like for example, if you put your hand on a hot stove, you'll jerk it away. And then a split second later, you'll feel pain. Those are lessons that teach you different things. They teach you not to do that again, but they also, that doesn't just make your hand not do it. It makes you think about not doing it and telling your little children not to do it, right? And then you tell your children, don't treat somebody bad because they might treat you bad. And then you might say, don't treat anybody bad because it's good to treat people good. And then somebody has to say, yeah, it's good, but so what? And then somebody says, well, there's a why behind it. Why? Because God doesn't want you to do that, or some big meaning-making master of infinity doesn't want you to do that. And various religions have various afterlives that we think can be our reward and punishment, or our second or third or fourth chance at life so we can grow. There's all these different whys and wherefores, and what is the point? So I'm telling you, there is no point. The problem with that, though, is that it really feels sucky to not have a point, because we need something to do. And so, like I said before, there is a point. There is a point. It's the point you think is the point. Until what you think is the point changes, it'll be the same. But it doesn't have to stay the same. You don't have to have the same purpose in life that people told you you had to have, or that you just sort of absorbed from hearing people talk and seeing people's behavior. You don't have to be a success, because that's another bullshit word like purpose, right? The biggest guides, I think, are pleasure and pain sensors, and also the implication that compassion is implied with pleasure and pain. So let's go to like hedonism here. So we've done nihilism, not environmentalism, but existentialism. All of these are about the fact that we are just existing. But this existence does make us purposeful because of our wiring. And a lot of the wiring is not just about the thoughts we have, but whether we feel pain and pleasure. And where compassion comes in is that for most of us, there is often unpleasantness in hurting other people if we're close enough to it. And there's unpleasantness in ignoring other people and not being polite to people and all those things. Some of that unpleasantness is just there after hundreds of thousands of years, or even prior to hominids coming along, maybe millions of years of evolution showing us, building within us knee-jerk reactions, pain sensations and pleasure sensations, that are able to get us to react quickly in coordinated ways through emotions like fear and enthusiasm, in order for us not to use too much cognitive effort to figure out how to get along with the tribal leader, or how to avoid getting arrested, or how to not be under a bank of snow that's about to turn into an avalanche. Some people are good at looking at that stuff. We develop all these automatic things that are basically feelings, as in tactile sensations, as in pleasure and pain, and also more complex stuff than that. We're constantly anticipating if a good thing or a bad thing is going to happen to us. We're constantly second guessing whether our behavior is going to get something good for us or not. And so, pain and pleasure can be your guide, because compassion functions by pain and pleasure. Most human beings are going to feel better ultimately when they generally do well for others, because experience tells them that it does. And then also life training does. Like if you just go up to somebody and do something nice, you just might feel nice for it. It's like, why do I feel nice for doing something nice to somebody? Evolution, your wiring, it's automatic. But there are sort of enhancements to that if you get the right experiences. If people tell you, thank you, that was wonderful, that can help you realize that you really did a good job for someone, and that in turn, they like you. And being liked has a pleasure element to it. All this adds up to the potential to get jobs or other ways of getting resources so you can have a shelter over your head, food, and a fridge to put in it. And all these things come from functioning successfully with the world's resources that are highly regulated by human beings and provided and stored and cultivated by human beings nowadays. And so it's not because it's the right thing to do. It's not because it's the right thing to do. But the more and more you stick up for the underdog the more you give something to the sick, the more you treat powerful people right and powerless people right, statistically, you might get these positive feedbacks. And just your intuition will tell you, well, that's one person that's not going to kick me in the ass next time I see him because I was generous to them. So that sounds like a selfish way of interpreting after you do something good. But again, the autonomic nervous system is quicker than that. It just makes you feel good or feel bad. And in fact, there's ironic processing too. You might give something to somebody, and for some reason you're like, oh, I'm such a sucker. I just give things away. And that's because of this other thing human beings have. That's called language. And so there's so much language that makes all of what you're supposed to be doing and not supposed to be doing and supposed to be being and supposed to not be being, that human beings argue about, and there's so many ideas and so many disagreements that it becomes very confusing. And that's because it's all a form of bullshit. But if we can learn to language in ways that support the illusion of pleasure and of safety, and ultimately of purpose, I think that's about as easy as life can get. I think that's probably like the cherry on the top of the pie of life. And there is nothing better, even though this cherry isn't as good as what everybody thinks heaven is. I don't think there is a heaven. I think you can have a cherry on top of your pie of life every once in a while in your life. And I think it really takes a lot of cold, rational reasoning of what's going to get me certain responses and what's going to happen to me if I walk out in the middle of a thunderstorm. You know, what happens if I stay in my house for weeks? Well, I'll feel safe. What happens if you stay in your house for weeks? Well, you'll feel lonely, you know? So I'm not saying it's mechanical and it's easy to follow. A lot more real research has to be done on this to make these descriptions I'm trying to say more reliable. But just think, and valid. Reliable means consistent, and valid means it's been looked at in several different ways, quantitatively studied, and most of the research results back up the same idea, right? So you are able to create a method of living that by trial and error can likely make you feel good. And thinking one has a purpose is good. And it even works if you, from a drive to have a purpose and to know what that purpose is, you can create that purpose for you out of the things you love to do, out of the changes you would love to see on the planet, out of the changes you would love to see in your life and other people's lives. And I can't guarantee you're going to have altruistic thoughts about other people. If you have some kind of level of antisocial personality disorder, you may not have altruistic plot lines to get yourself what you want and need in life. I suggest that you consider getting training, because you being diagnosed with antisocial personality disorder, or just potentially having it, you don't know if you're diagnosed with it, there's going to be a lot of painful pushback for you via society. Society does not like people that take advantage of other people. And I'm not sure you know this, you sociopath or you psychopath. You are taking advantage of people, and um, and it's just that people put people like you in jail. They also put innocent people in jail that didn't do anything to harm anybody, and all that stuff. But the point is, I think if you become a little bit more mercenary and realize that getting what you want is an exchange, and it's going to be easier if you understand how empathic people exchange things. They're quicker thinking than you are on those things. That you're going to get a buildup of people wanting to do things for you. You don't have to trick them. You don't have to steal from them. You don't have to knock them out. You can actually let them live and don't give them a concussion so that they can remember that you're such a cool guy, even though you're not. You're just pretending. It's okay to lie. It's okay to act like you're a good person by being one, by following the prescription that society gives you, particularly if you're a sociopath. That we're all playing a game. It's just you don't have some of the brain stuff, or you have extra brain stuff that makes it so you cannot understand the empathic interaction. But you can definitely fake it, and that's just as good, because you will actually be doing good for other people. But you'll just be admitting what we don't all admit, that you're doing it to get something out of it. Life is transactional. From us all the way down to the tiniest microbe. Life is transactional. It's an energy transaction. That's why we eat, to get energy. That's why plants get stuff out of what happens when our food comes back out of us the other side, and all that. So the ultimate message here is almost every human being can't help but have some purpose in their mind. The better news is you can actually tailor that purpose into another believable purpose that's better than the one that life dictated to you, until you became conscious of this idea that your purpose is just manufactured by you. But it has to be believable. It has to ultimately be believable to you. So if you're going to go out and be the most magnificent teacher so that kids out there will all go and create a better world for the future, do that, because it might work. Good afternoon.